Hi, so GenAI is touching almost every aspect of our business and personal lives. Models are becoming more powerful. You may or may not have heard a few weeks ago, OpenAI released the O1 model with increased reasoning capabilities. But from my perspective, there's quite a gap between the promise of what these models can deliver and what we're actually able to do with them in production. And one of the things I've been asking myself is how do we turn some of these extraordinary experiments into something that we can genuinely use? So my name's Colin Eberhardt. I'm the CTO of ScotLogic, a UK-based software consultancy. I'm also pretty heavily involved with FINOS. I'm the chair of the Technical Steering Committee, the co-chair of the AI Readiness Working Group, co-author of the FINOS State of Open Source report, and a whole load of other things that I can't remember quite now. So today I'm going to be talking to you about taking AI from prototype to production and making GenAI a tool for everyone. So some of the questions I want to tackle today is, what has made GenAI such a disruptive technology? Has it delivered on its promise? And why is this such a unique challenge? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tips and tricks that I want to share that will hopefully help you take it from prototype to production. So what has made GenAI such a disruptive technology? And just to look at the scale of this, I've been working in the software industry for about 25 years. I've seen technologies deliver amazing things over that time. The rise of the internet, mobile phones have really transformed the way that we use computers and transformed the way that we live our lives. Also, there have been some, I'd say, broken promises. Things like blockchain really haven't changed my life. So why is GenAI poised to be such a disruptive force? Now, I think there are a few reasons for that. AI has been around for years. AI is nothing new. However, with generative AI, there's been quite a step change. Historically, AI models have tended to be single purpose. You'd design and build them for, say, a predictive task or a translation task, and it would serve that task, and it would, to a certain extent, serve that task well. However, generative AI provides general purpose AI capability. You want it to translate a document? Just ask. You want it to you want it to do a summarization task? Just ask. They're general purpose models. We don't have to go through the training cycle in order to apply it to a great breadth of tasks. The next thing that I think is even more important is they have human language APIs. Previously, to use AI, you either had to be a Python developer or be good friends with a Python developer. Whereas nowadays, anyone in this room can use AI simply because of the human language nature of it. I think these two things have caused a significant increase in the use of AI across the globe. However, there's more than just that. Recently, we've seen emergent reasoning capabilities. These models weren't initially designed to perform reasoning. They were designed for language tasks. However, over a period of time using them, we've learned how to prompt them in such a way that they can actually solve problems. We've even found weird and unexpected things. They perform better if you bribe them or threaten them, which is really odd. But another thing that I also think is very notable is, a couple of years ago, we learned how to connect generative AI to tools. We learned how to connect it up to the internet. We learned how to connect it up to our internal knowledge bases. We learned how to do that in such a way that it acquires powers beyond its own training data set. Now, if I look at these two things, reasoning capability and use of tools, if I was to look at the human species versus gorillas and other animals, these are the two things that I think elevated the human species above and beyond almost all the other species on the planet. So I don't want to get too existential on you there, but I think these are really quite notable. So personally, I think the composite of all of this means that we are looking at what I believe to be the next technology epoch. And when I try to define a technology epoch, I look at my children. I've got teenagers. And when I try to describe to them life before mobile phones or life before the internet, they just don't get it. I talk to them about, they say, if you were wanting to meet someone and you were going to meet at a certain location and they didn't turn up, what did you do? Nothing. If they didn't turn up, they didn't turn up. And they simply cannot understand and cannot imagine life before mobile phones and the internet. In 10 years' time, I think the next generation of children are going to struggle to conceive life before AI. I personally think it's going to be that big. So has GenAI delivered on this promise? So hands up if GenAI is delivering for you and you've got lots of GenAI in production. Oh, 2 or 3 hands. That's a pretty low percentage, maybe about 2% of you. In all fairness, we are at the very early stages of this technology. Most of you work in organizations where there are significant obstacles in your way when it comes to putting this technology into production, and you genuinely have to exercise some caution. But you're not alone in that. A little while back, Gartner published a survey of around about 2,000 executives, and they found that 70% are investigating the use of AI, only 15% are piloting, and 5% have in production. This is another survey, the ML Insider survey. Again, similar results. Only 10% of organizations have generative AI in production. So you're not alone in that. But this is one I found really notable. McKinsey publish a sort of state of AI survey every year, and one of the things they did was simply ask people whether they regularly use GenAI tools within their day job. And they found in many sectors there was a significant increase in GenAI usage. You see things like legal and media, understandably text-heavy, information-heavy sectors are really embracing GenAI. Financial services, not so much. And I personally think that's a problem. And again, everyone in the room can probably understand some of the reasons that are holding this industry back. But I see this chart and I think that's pretty bad. But it's not just that. As a citizen, GenAI is not delivering for me. When I use ChatGPT, I enter into a world of fantastic and powerful AI, but I typically use it with effectively my developer or engineering hat on. It's not a consumer product. When I use one of the most popular consumer products that's supposed to be intelligent, Alexa, my God, is it dumb. The gap between ChatGPT and Alexa couldn't be bigger. And I personally think within the sort of 3 years between GPT-3 and Alexa, I would have thought the gap would have been closed by now. But there are some success stories. It's not all doom and gloom. I want to cheer you up a bit. Pack and Save. This is a New York-based company. They have a GenAI-powered recipe advisor on their website that allows you to come up with great recipes involving human flesh. Fantastic. Google integrated AI features into some of their services, and they recommended gluing cheese to pizza to stop it sliding off. Yeah, fantastic. DPD launched a chatbot. It was great. You could persuade it to swear or compose poems about their poor service. That was fantastic. There was a Chevrolet car dealership where they sold a car for $1 using the social engineering hack of no takesies backsies. It was brilliant. And interestingly, Air Canada had a similar issue with their chatbot where someone managed to social engineering attack the chatbot to persuade it to give them a refund. They refused to honor the refund. They were taken to court and they were forced to adhere to the refund that their chatbot had agreed. So don't worry if GenAI is not delivering for you. Just be happy you're not one of these guys. So why is this such a unique challenge? And let's not kid ourselves, adopting new technology is hard. It's always been hard. But I do think there are a few features of GenAI that make it particularly hard, probably a lot harder than adopting mobile or the internet. And I want to dive into some of those. And let's ask ourselves the question. We've been using AI for decades. Why is GenAI so different? Banks especially have been at the forefront of AI. Every single large financial services organization has an AI team. However, the type of AI they're working on is a little bit different. Typically, it's numerical and predictive. They're looking to, make money, spot opportunities. The AI that we have now, or the generative AI that we have now, is slightly different. It has different features to it. It's generative and it's creative rather than numeric and predictive. But more importantly, as I mentioned earlier, the interface is different. It's no longer just being used by your AI teams. Ideally, it's used by everyone. It's being used by developers, testers, designers, citizens. And the problem is, They are not data scientists. We are not data scientists. You're putting AI into the hands of a group of users who are not used to dealing with the nuances of AI itself. Being more specific, GenAI is non-deterministic and unpredictable. You don't get the same response each time that you prompt it with the same question. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. On the flip side, this is actually what makes it so useful and creative. But we find this very hard to use. For OpenAI users, for example, if your developers are using it to try to integrate into their products, they find non-determinism highly frustrating. The software industry thrives on determinism. We strive to have 100% pass in our test cases. We want our software to do exactly the same thing today, tomorrow, and the day after. But for ChatGPT users, for citizens, they find it equally confusing. Our society is geared around the concept of computers being right. We're not used to them being wrong. We're not used to them making mistakes. We're not used to them sometimes effectively lying to us. This is why this technology is really quite hard to grasp. Also, this looks like a positive. ChatGPT is, to my mind, one of the best rapid prototyping tools we've ever seen. And you might be thinking, well, that's a positive, surely. But I think this is a double-edged sword. And what I want to do is try to do, well, I'll give you a choice. Do you want me to go with a canned demo with a bunch of slides, or do you want me to do a live demo with a non-deterministic AI system on probably a contended Wi-Fi network? Canned demo? Is it? Live demo. Okay, right. Live demo. Let's check. Let's just check it's still there. You still there? Wi-Fi God's smiling on me? Yes, I'm here. Fantastic. Okay. Because I know I can't type when people are looking at me. So let's say I work for Pack and Save in New Zealand. I work for a grocery store that has an online grocery outfit. And I've come up with this really bright idea. If we create an online experience for recipe recommendations, where when they look at the list of ingredients, they can go click, 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 add to basket, will drive new sales. Wouldn't that be amazing? We've tried to build it before, but it was a bit poor, uninteresting, and not terribly engaging. We've seen ChatGPT and how creative it is, so let's see if ChatGPT can do it. So I'm going to prototype it. You're a recipe bot. Given a set of ingredients, come up with a punchy name, a brief and light-hearted summary of the recipe, and the ingredients list. I'll give you the ingredients as my next command, okay? Fingers crossed. Oh, phew. Sounds fun. Send over the ingredients and I'll whip up something tasty. So we need some ingredients. I'm going to need your help. Cucumber. That is double C, isn't it? No, is that single C? Please can people go with things I can spell, like
Shower gel.
Shower gel? Christ, okay. I've done this before. Normally the first three are like really conventional and then it goes off-piste. But thanks, David. Can we have something mildly edible next? Shrimp. And breadcrumbs, yeah, okay. I did this the other day and the final ingredient was anxiety. I love that. It was really cool. Let's see what it cooks up. This is going to be good. The slippery shrimp surprise. Looking to surprise your taste buds and confuse your senses? Dive into this non-edible concoction featuring fresh cucumber and shrimp with a slippery twist. Oh, man. Oh, wow, okay. Disclaimer, this recipe is purely for a laugh and definitely not for your dinner plate. Stick to shrimp cocktails if you're hungry. Okay, so as you can see, I've rapidly prototyped my idea, and what should I do now? Just ship it, put it in production? Well, that's what Pack and Save did. That's pretty much what DPD did, and that's what a whole load of other organizations are doing. I know this was a slightly ridiculous demonstration, but with ChatGPT, it is really, really easy to take ideas and turn them into something that gets you sort of 9/10 of the way there incredibly quickly. That was canned demo. The real demo was much more amusing. So as we've seen, prototyping is simple, but how do we take this into production? I think the first step, actually, is before you even start with this, I think the first step is simply start using the technology yourself. Now, I know that sounds a little bit condescending, but I know talking to some of my colleagues at work, I quite often find myself saying, Have you tried using ChatGPT for that? Have you tried using ChatGPT for that? They get a little bit annoyed at me after a while. But I think you really need to understand the nuance of this technology. It's not like most of the other technologies you've experienced before. So I would encourage you to experiment with it. Find what it's good at, find the limits. Get it to break, get it to succeed. I think that's one of the very first things that everyone needs to do, no matter your role within your organization. But I think getting to some of the more specifics, I think one of the more fundamental things that we can do is reconsider the way that we relate to this technology. As I mentioned, we have a relationship with computers where we expect them to be definitive, correct, factual, the outputs that they produce to be right every time. And I know at the moment with AI, and generative AI specifically, we're trying to put it on rails. We're trying to put guardrails around it so that it is right more often than not, which I think is a good thing. However, it's probably going to be very hard to make it correct and right every single time. If we can change the way that we relate to computers and this technology, we can get to a point where we can appreciate its creativity without having to potentially have some of the harmful effects when it's wrong sometimes. And let's be fair, humans get things wrong quite often as well, and we have learned how to adapt to that too. So I think we should reconsider the way that we relate to computers. Now, that might not be terribly helpful if you're trying to build a product and you put a disclaimer, it's AI, reconsider the way that you relate to it. But I think at a more fundamental level, this may help us in the long run. But let's get on to some of the more specifics. Start with the hard stuff. And again, it probably helps to come up with a bit of a sort of example. What I've seen a significant number of GenAI projects go in this direction. They'll start with a little bit of the GenAI at the beginning. They'll do the prototyping. They'll do exactly what I did with ChatGPT. They'll go, yes, we have a product. Right, now that we've got this idea, we need to do the boring database, the mundane API layer, some uninteresting app logic, a somewhat conventional web app. Basically, people start leaning on the stuff that they know already. Don't do that. Build this bit first and do it properly. And by that I mean, make sure that you understand the GenAI application that you've created. Make sure you understand the boundaries. Make sure you understand what's working and what isn't. So how do we do that? Well, we know how to do that. In the world of software engineering, we know the way to tame our systems is testing. GenAI systems are no different. We have to test them, we have to observe them. And what this means is we have to take a systematic approach. If you're, again, taking the Pack and Save chatbot as an example, in order to test that, we need to construct a number of scenarios. We need to create some success cases and failure cases. What we need to do is we need to automate that. And this is incredibly important because one of the things you've probably heard of is prompt engineering. So what I was doing there with ChatGPT is it's effectively talking to it, but this is prompting. It's asking it to do the thing that you want it to do. Prompt engineering is like everything else in software. It's an iterative process. We change the prompt and try to improve the output. However, if we don't have a solid set of test cases, a test suite that allows us to numerically and quantitatively assess whether we're improving, we end up going round and round in circles. We end up just tweaking the prompt and doing a local optimization for one case or another. So you definitely need to have a test suite, come up with some evaluation criteria, and use that to simply define how you want your system to behave. Now, this is a bit of a new field. The test suites, the test technology used currently probably won't work for non-deterministic systems. And at Scott Logic, we've done some of this ourselves. We've used some of the standard test runners and then used AI evaluators, which provide a certain amount of fuzzy logic. Rather than doing exact matches on the output, they will do a sort of fuzzy match to check whether it's factually correct or whether it contains certain key terms. There are actually some new open source tools that are being developed at the moment. One that I particularly like is called PromptFoo. What it does is it allows you to create a catalog of test cases and evaluate the effectiveness of your prompt. So it gives you a much more scientific way of iterating on your prompt and iterating on the GenAI part of your platform. So, for example, if this was being used for the recipe bot, you'd have various different permutations of the ingredients. You'd have various different outputs where you're trying to define, what you consider to be a quality output from your system. Another thing, break down complexity. And again, the funny thing is, none of this should sound at all alien to you if you've worked in software in the past. Breaking down complexity is something that we've been doing for a great many years. Refactoring, monoliths to microservices. We love breaking down complexity. However, I find more often than not, people seem to have forgotten this with generative AI. I see people developing prompts that just grow and grow and grow and grow. If you find your system doing something that you don't want it to do, you add a bit to the end saying, oh, don't do that. And then if it doesn't work, you either threaten it or you offer to reward it with a cookie if it does it properly. And sometimes that works. But the prompts tend to grow and grow and grow. You don't have to do that. Prompts are just like any other form of code. You can break it down into components. And what that means is once you've broken it down into components, it's much easier to develop targeted test suites for the particular chunks of functionality. Again, taking the recipe bot as an example, it's probably a little bit on the trivial side, but you could break it down into a prompt which creates the name, a prompt which creates the ingredient list, a prompt which creates the kind of jokey summary. And by breaking it down into those components, it's far easier to test it and develop it. And what you might find is some of those become units of reuse across your organization, or some of them might be more deterministic than others and easier to develop. And the final one, manage the risks. Now, this is a big subject, so I'm afraid I'm only going to pay lip service to it to a certain extent. But one of the things you really need to understand is some of the risks in your system, some of the threats in your system. You need to understand some of the ways that it can go wrong, whether it's simply the non-determinism of the underlying system, occasionally throwing out oddball results, or whether it's a malicious or nefarious user trying to attack through prompt injection, or trying to get it to do strange things by reciting poetry, which is a form of attack for these systems. You need to understand these risks, you need to document them, and you need to determine suitable controls that you can employ to mitigate those risks. And a number of those risks, things like hallucination. Now, this is a problem. Hallucination isn't a risk. It's a feature of the underlying AI system. You need to start talking in the language of the application that you're developing. How does hallucination manifest within your particular AI application? That is the threat, those are the risks, and you need to understand what controls to put in place. Now, I didn't know whether Gab was announcing this today or tomorrow, but I'll just do a hand wavy. There's a big announcement at some point. It didn't happen today, so it must be tomorrow. So I'm co-chairing the AI readiness working group within FINOS. What we're doing at the moment is creating a governance framework for safe onboarding of generative AI technology within financial services. We've got a big announcement. It didn't happen today, so it must be tomorrow. So yeah, come along to the keynotes tomorrow. So yeah, as a recap, GenAI is disruptive, it's exciting, but I think a lot of people are struggling with it. We're all learning how to use this amazing new technology. I personally think it's very important to start understanding how to move from prototype to production. As Kelsey said, ship your proof of concept. The most important thing you need to do is focus on the hard stuff, focus on the generative AI. And the most important way that you can tame AI is to start creating robust test suites around it so that you can quantify the quality of the output it's producing. Finally, understand, document, and mitigate the risks. So good luck to all of you taking AI from prototype to production. Thank you.